So welcome, Nick, to the Beauty Way. So beautiful to have you here. And I loved reading your bio. I have a knowledge of what it is and how it is that you express yourself in the world. But I would love you to share what drew you to express yourself as like an embodiment sexuality facilitator. And I love your laughs.
Just straight off the bat. I love it. Hi, thank you for having me. What drew me? Life drew me. I feel like I am like Hansel and Gretel, and I am just like following the breadcrumbs and just going wherever the trail takes me, where life takes me. And I don't know that it was ever a like solid conscious choosing of like, this is what I want to do and this is how I want to experience life. I feel like it came to me and moved through me. And so I found myself in these places and these spaces and facilitating in the way that I do. Yeah, not by, I mean, obviously I took action and I said yes, but yeah, I feel like it was always presented to me and I was always surrounded by someone who was sort of influential in that way. And so I just slot on in.
Well, and it's actually one of the things that I really love about you, because you're such a what I witness in you is how you just love delving into like the deliciousness of the depths, and
Yeah.
it just feels so perfect that that's for you. And we were talking on a call just before this one, and I was saying how over the weekend I was doing a journey, and my intention was to be led by him and taken by her. And I feel for me, that's like about really exploring the power of like that undertow and the deliciousness of like all of the things that we've made bad in our society. Yeah. And that's what I feel, there's such a richness in what you're doing and how you're expressing that in the world.
Yeah, sorry, it cut out a little bit at the end there, so I missed the tail end of what you said. But the key word that you spoke to that really came to my mind too was richness. I feel like there's such like this deep, like it's like richness in the underbelly that's like it has all of the answers and it's invited so deeply within ourselves, and to be able to create a space where people get to explore these spaces and potentially the parts of themselves that are unintegrated and a little bit sticky, and society would class as like the space itself is taboo. That's, I feel like that's why is my deep appreciation for what this space makes available within ourselves and in relationship to others. So yeah, that richness is the part of why I jump in and go with the flow of the undercurrent. And sometimes there's a version of myself that goes, shit, did we have to jump all the way in? Let's just like slowly paddle our way down as opposed to just diving straight on it. And at the same time, it invites so much from me, and there's such deep, profound medicine in it. And so, yeah, it's my intention for that to be felt, because they say that you can only take someone as deep as you're willing to go, and I feel like I really go to places which I'm being invited into, irrespective of how uncomfortable it feels in my physical vessel. So
Yeah. So when you experience that discomfort,
yeah,
what do you do with it? How do you allow yourself to flow with it?
I create relationship with it, and so I meet it in the same way in which I would meet my partner. I meet it in the same way in which I would meet a friend. I meet it sort of with curiosity, and there's definitely times where I resist it. There's times where I have this conditioned way of relating that comes in, that tries to dominate it, control it, resist it, reject it, all of the pieces. And sometimes I'll go through that process for a little while, but then eventually I'll get to this point where I'm like surrendered and start softening into it. And then that's where the curiosity comes in of like, what is this inviting me into? What is this piece desiring from me? And so I start to relate with it and communicate it from like I said, that place of curiosity. So yeah, that's sort of how I meet it.
So
Yeah,
it's like what you're talking about is actually tuning in more deeply to the felt senses in your body.
yeah, yeah, 100% attunement to the inner relationship and the sensations that it's creating somatically in my system.
Yeah.
You know, for so long I didn't know how to do that process. I didn't know how to connect with it in a way, and I had other ways to create relationship with it, probably a bit more verbally, but now it's more of like a felt sense and a feeling, allowing that feeling to be there and sort of following where that wants to go or how it wants to be expressed, and allowing space for that process to happen. So yeah, that's sort of my approach now, I guess.
Do you find do you find that's one of the greatest resistances in people is actually the resistance to the felt sense in the body?
And not knowing how to be with it, you know, that was the biggest part for me. Is I didn't know how to feel the totality of the sensation, or know where my capacity was at and where I was maxed and what I had the agency for. And so knowing that you can feel it to a degree, but you don't have to feel all of it. You know, I didn't know that was, I was like, if I'm fucking feeling it, I'm feeling all of it. And so and so I was like, sometimes that was too much for my nervous system and would further dysregulate me, and have a whole array of things that went along with that. But I feel like people don't know. They don't know how to feel it. They don't know how to connect to the sensation. They don't know where their limits are of like, what do I have the capacity for within this sensation, and can I just allow it to, when it gets to this cap or this total of what I'm available for, can I let it go? Of like not needing to have it figured out, not needing to have resolution, not needing to have had healed and miraculously have moved through all of it, you know, like, can I just be in dance and in relationship, sort of like that my hands are going like this, and so I'm feeling like there's like this expansion and this contraction, and it's just like
Yes.
this living breathing relationship of, it doesn't have to be this and it doesn't have to be this, it can just continually, we can just continually dance with it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that, because that's what I've been playing with, is like expanding into the contraction. So allowing myself to feel the contraction fully in my body, and then expanding into that, and what that takes is surrender, is like, because the conditioning for me, from what I've witnessed and what I've experienced, is the conditioning is, when that contraction comes, I have to get away from it. I have to go and do something to stop that contraction, or to get a, to not feel that contraction. And that's what
Yeah.
that's what we've been taught to do. Whereas if we actually be with that contraction and allow ourselves to surrender into it, there's an expansion that comes there. But it's like, it's fucking hard.
Yeah, 100%. And even just for me, I've just noticed that even acknowledging, oh, I'm acknowledging this contraction right now, that my body starts to soften in the acknowledgement of the contraction, because I'm not trying to change it. I'm not trying to make it something other than what it is. I'm just witnessing it and acknowledging it for what it is. And I notice that the byproduct of that, not always, but like some of the time, is even just in me acknowledging it, it starts to soften. And so then I then gain more capacity or agency to continue to function as a human in life, even if the thing is still there, you know, if it's still present and it's still, you know, as opposed to before where I'd be like, I'm tapping out, like I can't, I'm done. I've got to tap out. I don't have the capacity to be in life with feeling this contraction. And having that relationship, and similar to what you were sharing before, is just that being with it is also allowing me to function in life as a human in this experience alongside it. Yeah. So
Walking. So the question that I wanted to ask just then was, all of these things that we're talking about and creating this richness, and you've used the word relationship a number of times. How does that anchor into, for for people to understand, because you also mentioned the word taboo at the start, and like these practices, these practices of like surrendering into our body, there's an element of taboo there. And so, and then it's being in our sexuality fully and expressing our sexuality whilst we're getting more accepting of it, there still is a large resistance to that. How what are people's biggest challenges with that? And how do we start to, like, if someone was going, oh, I'm really interested to learn about this, how do they move beyond their own perceived limitations to actually explore that relationship and then connect it to their sexuality? I know that's like kind of a broad question, but
there's multiple questions in
it.
the question. And so I guess the first piece that came to me before the second half of the question was mistrust. I feel like there's such a huge mistrust in like themselves, in the space, in their capacity to navigate the space authentically. And so I feel like people are really withdrawn because of that, because people don't know how to uphold their boundaries. They don't know how to not reflexively fawn, especially when it comes to sexuality. You know, like we're so conditioned to think that sex looks this way or this way or this way, and if our body's not resonating with that for whatever reason, that it's not okay to say that and stop, or take a sacred pause. You know, like there's so much. I feel like it's so like layered, like there's so many layer upon layer upon layer, and because of that mistrust that we have within ourselves, I feel like it prevents people from, like, you know, even entertaining the idea of that. And I really appreciate that, and me jumping in and going with that richness in the undercurrent is potentially the thing that brought me to where I am, because like I was very unconscious when it came to relating, and it was through the spaces in which I hold that I was able to find these aspects of myself to then create that inner relationship. But people don't know what they don't know. So they don't know that this very thing is the very thing that can invite them into all of those places, so that they then relate and show up more consciously and authentically. And so the mistrust is probably like the first piece that I would share, and then potentially the mistrust in whoever is guiding them or navigating them. I feel like I have a lot of discernment about who I will allow to hold me and facilitate me into a space like that, because it is essentially like Pandora's box. You know, you don't know what, sometimes we're not even conscious of the things that we've experienced, let alone, you know, how integrated is the person that's then taking us into that, and how self-aware are they, and how, you know, how like are they trauma informed, you know? So I feel like we're starting to come into this place where people are like, they're really having discernment before entering into spaces, before they like open themselves up to that. And so I feel like there's some pieces there that sort of people really need to soften into. It's like anything, it's slow, and it's an unraveling. And so, and that's what we is to not push, to follow the pull and not push, because, you know, you don't want to go into something that your body somatically is not ready for. And so we always recommend that if someone's having a lot of apprehension, that they go to the consent workshop, which is like 2 hours before we go into like a temple space, for them to explore their sexuality, because stretch, that in and of itself is stretching. You know, you're stretching yourself, and you're meeting yourself in places that you haven't necessarily met yourself in before. And so yeah, I feel like it's really important to go really slowly when stretching and expanding yourself in that way. And then can you remind me of the last little bit that you spoke
I think you've got,
in relation to the question?
I think you've actually answered it, in because you're talking about the stretching into the expansion, which is the embodiment. And
Yeah.
I was reflecting when you were speaking on, you know, my relationship over the last 3 years. We came together quarter of a century ago, and we were both, you know, we were both still really wounded and weren't necessarily safe in our bodies and were. And so when it's that relational perspective and that development of trust needs to come over a period of time, and we need to allow ourselves to sink into that trust first with ourselves. And so what I'm actually picking up is that what you're doing in the temples is you're creating that relationship of trust with self. So that when you talked about the consent workshop, it's like, okay, this is what's okay with me, this is what's not okay with me with another, and then I'm going to step into this space and I'm going to allow myself to trust myself that I can actually hold this.
Yeah, nailed it.
And that and that's
yeah,
how,
100%.
and that's how we create the most beautiful sexual relational experiences, isn't it? Because that's how we go deepest, because we feel safe.
Yeah, 100%. And that last piece is like everything, the safety. Like that's ultimately what we're doing in this space, is we're cultivating safety. And so when we can cultivate safety and we trust ourselves, then we can meet another. If we don't have that, then we can't necessarily trust that how we're showing up is in our best interest or in the best interest of the other. And so, yeah, that is like basically the foundation of um, what I'm trying to create is so that people have that deeper understanding and that rapport within themselves, so that they feel safe enough to navigate whatever, not just in the space, but whatever life is offering them. And so, yeah, it's been a big part of my journey and a big part of my own personal expansion and growth, is being able to find and cultivate safety within my body. Yeah.
Beautiful. And so what inspires you about life that led you to want to continue to follow this bliss?
What inspired me about life that invites me to continue? It's funny, the first answer that came to my mind when you're like, what inspires you, and the first thing that came to mind was nature, but that's not the follow-on part, which is invites me to continue moving forward, is to be honest, I think it's just my own experience is what keeps inviting me in, because I am having the felt experience. I'm meeting myself in all of these places, and so therefore I know it's available. I know that there's other people out there that are struggling with this. I know that there's other people out there that, you know, don't necessarily know what is available to them. And actually that's a big piece of share with me after attending one of the events that we run, is like, I had no idea this was available, you know, like it wasn't even in their field and their awareness. And so I feel like that's a big piece for me, is like, if I know that it's available, then I also want to share that with another. You know, I want to have someone else have that felt experience, so that they also know how to show up and navigate within their relationship, you know, their relationships ultimately, but also within themselves, because it's been everything that I have been actively working on and pursuing and learning and expanding into for myself, because I've needed it. So so I have been an inspiration. My trauma has been an inspiration.
I love that. You've been the trauma, instead of defining you and creating suffering, the trauma has inspired you to move beyond it. And to me, that's 100%. The beauty way. That's weaving, 100%. That is weaving the beauty way into life, and life into the beauty way.
Yeah. And making all things sacred and beautiful, even the bits that are sticky and confusing and uncertain, and, you know, create that contraction. It's like finding it in all of it is what allows us to go on that path, you know. I feel,
and I feel like that's a really important piece, is this trauma aspect. And you mentioned it before about being trauma informed, because there are, you know, there is this tendency to want to understand the trauma and to figure out why and all of those types of things. But when we actually come into the body, it's okay, well, how did this trauma make me feel? And what is like, how can I allow myself to feel that completely through my own experience with trauma, and through James's experience with trauma? What I recognized was that massive traumatic experience almost like ripped the soul, ripped the spirit from the body. And every time we consciously choose to come into this place and feel what's actually going on for me, I'm reconnecting another layer of my spirit. I'm bringing another level of my wholeness to this moment.
100%. 100%. Yeah, I really feel that. And that's why I always say the two words that I sort of use all of the time to explain this process is unraveling and integrating, because I feel like that's exactly what you're doing. You're unraveling all of the pieces that aren't actually authentically you or true, or that have been like deeply imprinted, or all of these other pieces. There's this unraveling that happens from that space. And then what we're invited into is the integration of all of the pieces. And so that we are really wholeheartedly showing up authentically as us, as opposed to, you know, the conditioned way of being or relating or whatever it is, you know, or the reflexible response that we have within our nervous system because of the past experiences or events. And then we get to witness it and observe it, and be part of that process of unraveling, so that we then can integrate this, you know, the truer aspects of self, which I feel is what it's inviting us into. And so, yeah, it's such a very beautiful slash humbling slash sometimes deeply painful process. But it's also, like I said, it is the beauty way for me, you know. It has such remarkable medicine. And yeah, once I get through the stickiness, I always feel, you know, deeply humbled and grateful for all that I get to traverse and consciously make an effort to move through. So
Yeah, and yeah, I just feel like you're such a beautiful example of that, like allowing yourself to really delve into that, and then just having this lightness afterwards, and just witnessing, you know, the joy in your life and your body, and just feeling like totally infectious. And I love it. And yeah, I'm sure that your temples would be amazing.
Thank you. They're fun. They're super fun. They're super playful. They're like this hybrid experience where we integrate, you know, tantra and kink and BDSM, and it's like a playground for adults, you know, and it's done consciously, and as we can make it. And so yeah, it's just this there's like a little bit for everyone, you know.
So what would you say to someone who's hearing that and hearing all those words, you know, all of those words that have been considered taboo, even tantra to an extent have been considered taboo, and but they're going, oh, like she looks like she's quite, you know, she's quite normal and she's quite approachable, and but they're feeling a little bit scared. What would you say to someone, just to that person, about coming to your temple or just temple?
Yeah, it's funny. I literally had this conversation with someone earlier on today. I sent them a voice note because they were in the curiosity, but also in the, I guess, the felt feeling of the fear that arises in the uncertainty and in the unknown. And I can share, I can't remember word for word, obviously, what I shared with them, but what I will share is what I remember. And so every experience is so unique because every individual that enters into the space is unique, and so everyone brings a different vibe, a different flavor. And so the space is literally whatever is a co-creation of everyone that enters into the space. And so as much as you know, we might have an idea of the logistics of the night, and the energetics is literally is a co-creation of everyone that turns up on the night. And so the logistical pieces are the foundations, which is the consent workshop, and then we go into the temple, where we really weave in the sacred and the tantric of sexuality, and then we do different connection practices, which really have you open up to exploring in a way that feels safe, but also it's like educational as well, and somatic, because you're having the felt feelings. So it's like a real combination of all the things. And each practice is really setting you up for the next phase, which is the open play space. And so the invitation is to continue to move through it with curiosity, and to never engage in anything that feels beyond your bounds. And so continually attuning to your body, continually attuning to the space, and just allowing yourself to play in the curiosity without the intention of or expectation that you need to do anything. And so usually that's enough for people to go, okay, I don't have to do anything that I don't want to do. They're going to teach me some things. There's enough safety in that. But if there's always like a lot of reserves, I'm always like, there's so much that you will just experience from the first tier, you know, because it's almost like we're building people up for the end piece, the crescendo. But it's like at the start, it's like, if that is exactly where you are, then that is perfect. Come to that one, come to it 10 times, you know, until you're like, maybe I'll explore more, and maybe it's not for you, and that's perfect too, you know, like maybe the temple space is not the place where you explore. And we had a lady recently send an email saying that she's not quite ready for the space, and she's found another place that's platonic touch that feels more aligned for her. And we're like, in celebration of that, because the thing that I don't want is for you to push beyond your capacity and re-traumatize your body. And so I'm here for going at a pace that feels safe for you, and to support you in discerning what that is. So
beautiful. And that's about choice, isn't it? Like, and everyone gets to, you're acknowledging that everyone has a choice, and their choice is perfect in that moment.
100%.
So the next question is kind of aligned with that, in that if you were to stand in front of your, this question was inspired because my eldest has just turned 18, and I was reflecting on it a lot. And if you were to stand in front of your 18-year-old self, and you were to give her a piece of advice about life, what would you say to her?
It's so funny, because this is the one question that you shared with me that has just been continually, like, it's almost been like percolating in my system, and it just keeps coming back around, and I just like keep feeling into what my answer would be, because I feel like there's been so many stages of my life. If you had asked the same question, I would have given a completely different answer every single time. And I feel like the answer that feels the truest for me in this moment is, you're exactly where you need to be, and I've got you. Because I feel like the times where I feel really torn is the times where I felt really like I haven't had someone who's been there to hold me, because I haven't been able to hold myself. And so I haven't trusted my decisions, I haven't trusted in myself, I haven't trusted in life, and I haven't felt like I've had anyone that's really got me, you know, like I always have this fear that like anyone can go at any time, nothing is permanent. And so then it's like reminding myself that I've got you, and you're exactly where you need to be, because every single decision that I've made up until this point has made me who I am. And so there's no way in which I would want to change that. In hindsight, there's things that I had known, and simultaneously I wholeheartedly know that it's because of all of those pieces that I now have the awareness that I have, and the capacity and the agency that I do, and that I have the ability to show up in the way that I do, and I can meet the places of all of the unintegrated versions of me that were younger in a way that I have never been able to meet myself before. And so those are the two pieces that I feel really strongly at this point in time, is that you're exactly where you need to be, and I've got you.
I love that so much. And because I was actually having a conversation with my daughter this morning, and we were talking about, you know, her potentialities of moving out and doing all these certain things. And I was actually like allowing myself to be fully present in the conversation. And that's what I was that's the invitation and the unspoken message that I was sharing with her, which was, whatever you decide is the right decision. You're exactly where you need to be. And seeing all of her self-doubts and acknowledging that those self-doubts are actually necessary, because they're asking her, okay, what's important for my safety? And so allowing her, and and I love that, because my daughter, having my two daughters, just helps me put myself outside of myself all the time and go, rightio, what would I be telling myself at 18 or 16 in this moment? So yeah, I love.
Yeah.
And knowing that, knowing that someone has got me is so important. And so
Yeah.
it's really beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And so, is there anything else, because this is called the Beauty Way, and the Beauty Way was inspired to me, because that's been the life that I wanted to create. And to me, it is a way of living. It's a way of creating. It's, my dream, my greatest vision is to ensure that the beauty of our existence is flourishing for future generations. And that's what I see as the Beauty Way. Is there anything else that you want to share about the Beauty Way for you, and how it inspires you, or how you are living it in the world?
Thank you for this question. I really value the piece that you spoke to around, really which is inspiration for me also around future generations. I see the ripple effect it has when there's not necessarily a conscious willingness to meet all of these places, and the impact that that has generation after generation after generation, and being a byproduct of that. So I really I feel the desire also to do that is necessary within me, so that the ripple effect of that is different to the one in which I know. And so um, for me, it's continually meeting all of the places that were impacted by that ripple effect, so that I can now carve a new way that is unknown, that is uncertain to me, but that my heart and that God keeps calling me into. And so to keep following that path, like I was saying at the start, the Hansel and Gretel, keep following the places which He's ushering me into, because that's where I find, and nature being a big part of that, is where I find the totality of the beauty in which I feel is available to us in this human experience. And so for me, that is how I'll continually keep meeting this path, is meeting it first internally within myself, and then in relationship to nature and relationship to God. And so for me, that is the Beauty Way, and that's what continues to inspire me. And I trust that the ripple effect of that will then impact future generations to come. So
Yeah, I love that so much, because when you were speaking then, it's so for me, because I was just chatting at breakfast this morning, and I was saying how the more that I explore and connect with all of these different dimensions of myself, and all, all of my past lives, and all of the aspects of who I am, and bring them into this present moment, the more I realize that nature isn't going to die. Like, she's just going to keep going. And that aspect of allowing her to take me is actually me choosing to be connected to her even more deeply, and to her elemental wisdom that is also deeply connected to spirit. And so it's letting all of that guide us, and it is literally, like you're saying, it is literally being guided and just moved by our future self, which is nature and God, and combined, and this beautiful divine union of souls. So thank you for that little piece, because it kind of like brought this little ripple into my
and as you were talking, I was like, oh, and there's a piece there around your sexuality, because I could feel this like burning sensation, like in a good in my like in my yoni, like in my sex. And so I was like, and there's a place where we get to integrate and activate within us too, so that we're living in our pleasure. And that is also the beauty way. You know, I feel like
Yeah.
a lot of it's been shut down. And so
Yeah.
we're moving into this place of expansion where we're allowing ourselves to be fully liberated and best, and that is inclusive of our sex. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Nick. I love what you give to the world. I love what you give to my world. And yeah, I'm so grateful that you joined me today.
Thank you. This has been so great. I feel so energized and alive by this conversation. So I hope everyone else appreciates it as much as I have.
I know they will. Thank you.
Thank you.